It's Wednesday, March 1. In the headlines, the national budget has now passed the $1 trillion mark. In business news, remittances lauded by Finance Ministry as helping to cushion the impact of COVID-19. Regionally, in the Bahamas, local Rastafarians feel France is holding the key to solving Haiti's crisis. Internationally, U.S.-China Committee Chair warns of existential struggle. And in sports, CWI establishes partnership with Next Wave Multimedia. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clarke, on Tuesday announced that $4.3 billion has been tacked onto the budget for this fiscal year, which ends on March 31. This now brings the budget past the $1 trillion mark to approximately $1.002 trillion. The Finance Minister was speaking in Parliament on Tuesday.
These fourth supplementary estimates arise as those discussions, negotiations are continuing, and as a result of some of the advances made in those discussions, additional provisions have to be made. The fourth supplementary estimates, therefore, makes provision, Madam Speaker, for the implementation across the entire public sector for the full implementation of the first year of the compensation restructuring.
The police, doctors and the teachers are some of the major groups which have refused to sign off on the new compensation package. Minister Clarke had warned that the groups who did not sign the wage agreements before the end of this fiscal year could face up to a year's delay in getting the new dates, as the government would not be able to accommodate this in the budget for 2023-2024.
The supplementary estimates, Madam Speaker, adjust compensation-related items up by $10.1 billion. And, Madam Speaker, it also has an adjustment in capital expenditure downwards of $5.8 billion. And those capital expenditure projects relate to areas in the public investment project portfolio where projects are unlikely to be completed, or certainly the funds are unlikely to be drawn down in the next 4 weeks of the fiscal year, and therefore they're being reprogrammed in this way.
Dr. Clarke further noted that there is additional expenditure being proposed for the National Solid Waste Management Authority and the Jamaica Urban Transit Company.
The process of resolving these, Madam Speaker, necessarily across 140 public bodies to be done in a single financial year, in fact, to be done between November and March, given that the agreement with the Central Confederation was agreed at in March, to get 140 public bodies done between November and March, by definition, is going to lead to what we are experiencing. It is, Madam Speaker, I would encourage you to look at it in reverse, that of 140 public bodies doing this kind of reorganization, going from 325 to 16, it is a testimony to the process that we only have 1 or 2, 3 or 4, 5 or 6, Madam Speaker, out of 140.
The estimates were approved after consideration by Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriations Committee and the Standing Finance Committee. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, is encouraging more innovative collaboration between private and public sector stakeholders. And she is urging stakeholders to take advantage of emerging opportunities offered by the changing global trade environment. She shared that encouragement while speaking at the Jamaica Trade Policy Advisory Group stakeholders meeting recently. We have more in this report. The stakeholders meeting was a joint effort of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, other ministries and agencies, the private sector, academia and civil society stakeholders to provide technical advice and input in support of trade policy development and implementation. Minister Johnson Smith, who highlighted recent global economic shocks and unpredictable changes in the global trade environment, urged a positive approach.
It is important that Jamaica, especially through its private sector, maintains a high standard of excellence and makes a concerted effort to meet the requirements demanded by this dynamic environment. Therefore, as we strive to address the new global challenges and seek to identify sustainable avenues and mechanisms through which to promote Jamaica's interests, I challenge you, our stakeholders, to also explore the ways in which you and your companies can make a lasting contribution to Jamaica becoming a leading force in the transformation of global trade.
She reiterated the role of the government in facilitating trade through negotiation of agreements and creating policies, including the National Foreign Trade Policy and Foreign Trade Action Plan.
We are the talk and the framers. You are the doers. You are the implementers. And therefore, your role and your partnership is absolutely critical to this process. That outlines our general policy direction and our policy implementation priorities, strategies, and related initiatives geared at maximizing the opportunities presented in the international trade arena.
Noting CARICOM's 25 by 2025 initiative to reduce the region's import bill, Minister Johnson Smith encouraged companies to take full advantage of the opportunities.
I would encourage you to look at opportunities from your vantage point to see whether there are bases for the government pursuing partial scope agreements with additional countries, both within and outside the region. Additionally, there are yet untested regional instruments emanating from recent decisions at the Conference of Heads of Government, such as, for example, the Protocol on Enhanced Cooperation, which might allow for the pursuit, along with like-minded CARICOM countries, of a more expansive national and regional trade policy agenda.
This was the first in-person meeting of key stakeholders following a hiatus due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Ministry of Health and Wellness showcased the winners from the National Health Research Conference 2023 at a recent JIS think tank. The focus highlighted Dr. Valance Jordan's PhD research on glaucoma. Glaucoma is a group of eye diseases that can cause vision loss and blindness by damaging a nerve in the back of your eye called the optic nerve. According to Dr. Jordan, there is a worrying high prevalence of glaucoma in Black people, especially in Jamaica. Maya Chung has more in this report.
These symptoms can start so slowly that an individual may not notice them. According to the global medical fraternity that specializes in this particular eye disease, the only way to find out if you have glaucoma is to get a comprehensive dilated eye exam. On February's edition of the JIS think tank, the focus was placed on this ocular disease and the ill effects of the ailment. The focus came within the context of the Ministry of Health and Wellness's National Health Research Conference 2023, where Dr. Valance Jordan was chosen as one of this year's winners. Dr. Jordan, who is an ophthalmologist, indicated that his research was done to see the quality of life for Jamaican glaucoma patients improve. He said, especially because it is so widely pervasive in Black people in Jamaica.
This research that I presented was actually a part of my thesis for my postgraduate studies in ophthalmology when I was at University of the West Indies. And it's about glaucoma. And glaucoma is something that I think needs to be talked about more than it is right now. So glaucoma is a leading cause of blindness worldwide and also in the Caribbean. And it's something that is very common in Jamaica. If you go to any eye clinic, probably the majority of the patients actually have glaucoma.
Dr. Jordan indicated his research was conducted at the Kingston Public Hospital with a sample size of 96 persons.
What we did is we administered a questionnaire called the VFQ25, or the Vision Function Questionnaire 25. The reason we chose this is because it is something that has been used in a lot of big studies across the world in United States and Sweden, and also the Barbados eye study in the 1990s. So it gives us some other studies that we can compare with. So the Vision Function Questionnaire has 25 questions, and it's designed to tell us how a patient's vision is affecting their daily activities. So essentially, this is a gauge of their quality of life. Overall, our patient scored 71.2 out of 100. This is an overall average of all of the different aspects of vision. And, well, we can compare it to Barbados. So in the Barbados eye study, the average was 78.9 out of 100. So our patient scored slightly worse than in Barbados, but it's relatively comparable. But when we looked at the different persons in the study, we found that men actually had worse vision than the women that were in the study, and they also scored lower. So the men on average scored 63.9 out of 100, as opposed to the women who scored 77.4.
According to Dr. Jordan, since black genetics are more predisposed to presenting with and developing glaucoma, he recommends that screening for the eye disease starts at 14 years old and up.
Glasses don't have anything to do with it, because if you have glaucoma, then you're not necessarily going to wear glasses. Glasses will not help. So I recommend that you get screened if you're 40 or over, especially black patients, and majority of Jamaica were black. So if you're black, then by the age of 40, get a comprehensive eye test, because you could have glaucoma. It is so common. But if you have a family member with it, then even more so. You definitely should be screened even earlier than they were diagnosed, as I was saying.
According to research by the PBCJ News team, some countries observe Glaucoma Awareness Week between June 26 to July 2.
If you go to an eye doctor, what they're going to do is baseline checks. They're going to test your vision, let you read a chart. But as I said, your central vision is the last to go. So you can have great central vision, read perfectly, and still have glaucoma. So we're going to check the pressure in your eye. A lot of people who have glaucoma have a higher eye pressure, intraocular pressure, than normal. But even if it is normal, that doesn't mean that you don't have glaucoma. Some glaucoma patients have pressures that are within what would be considered to be the normal range. And then you're going to be examined. So under what we call a slit lamp, which is really a microscope, we'll have a look at the eye, the front of the eye, the back of the eye, including the optic nerve. And there's some signs in the optic nerve that can suggest that this person likely has glaucoma. And then there are other tests that can be done to look at the structure of the optic nerve and how it functions. So there are scans that can be done to look at the structure of the optic nerve, when it's called the OCT, or optical coherence tomography. And that looks at the structure and can suggest if nerve tissue from the optic nerve is lost.
Further research by the PBCJ News team indicates that some new glaucoma medications are netosudyl combined with latanoprost to create Rocklatan, an effective combination medication. Rocklatan offers the highest average IOP reduction of any single glaucoma medication.
There's also visual field testing, and what that does is it tests your central and your side vision to see if there are any parts that are missing or that are less sensitive than we'd expect. And that can also indicate that there's optic nerve damage that is consistent with you having glaucoma.
Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
Jamaicans across the diaspora are being lauded for their invaluable contribution in helping the local economy stay afloat through remittances during the COVID-19 pandemic. Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, said that remittances jumped approximately from $500 million to $2.9 billion in 2020, which helped to cushion the loss of $2.5 billion in foreign exchange earnings from tourism. Remittance inflows further increased in 2021, exceeding $3.3 billion. Minister Clark noted that along with the increase in remittances, it was other measures implemented by the government that enabled the country to successfully navigate the crisis. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Tuesday, February 28, the US dollar sold for an average of $153.70. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $113.96. The pound sterling traded for $185.20, and the euro sold for $165.90. In JSE trading, the JSE index advanced by 3,927 points. The junior market index advanced by 27 points. The combined market index advanced by 3,913 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 6,007 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 114 stocks, of which 55 advanced, 42 declined, and 17 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Verbal Preference, Access Financial Services Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Trading firm were Siboney Group Limited, Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share, and Epley 7.50% Preference Shares due 2024. The overall volume leaders were Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares and JFP Limited with over 3 million units, followed by Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with over 2 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, zero securities traded. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Goddard Enterprises Limited was the sole security trading 28 shares. In regional business, Bahamas' Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Chester Cooper, revealed that for the month of January, there was more than 150% uptick in tourist arrival. More from our news.
We can tell you that we've had a phenomenal January to the tune of 150% greater than we saw in 2022. 2022 was also a great year, almost mirroring what we did in 2019. So any increase over 2022 is significant news.
The Ministry of Tourism recorded over 7 million tourist arrivals for 2022. Cooper acknowledging the direct link between tourism arrivals and airlift, which he says is on the rise.
All of the islands across the Bahamas, airlift is up, and we expect that it will match the growth that we're seeing in tourism. We're forecasting a 16% over 2019 levels up to the end of June.
The DPM made the revelation on the sidelines of the groundbreaking ceremony for a more than $352 million development for Montage Key Abaco. He says airlift to that island is expected to rise, which is significant as the island continues its rebound post-Hurricane Dorian.
We have steady airlift and it's growing. Delta American, we have a new airline that's going to be providing business class seats into this area. As you know, there's a close connection with Palm Beach and the Abacos. We expect it only to grow. The Ministry of Tourism and its partners will provide significant airlift to drive tourism and for the residents' convenience.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
In market data for oil prices slipped as signs of ample supply and rising U.S. crude inventories countered hopes for higher demand arising from a jump in manufacturing in top crude importer China. Brent crude was down 41 cents to $83.04 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude fell 60 cents to $76.45. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In the Bahamas, the local Rastafarian community says compensation from a world superpower is the key to solving the crisis in Haiti. Joshua Williams has that story.
The cries in Haiti has captured the attention of neighboring countries in the wake of widespread violence and illegal migration to other countries like the Bahamas. High Priest for the Bahamian Rastafarian community, Rithman McKinney, says he believes the first step in solving the Haitian crisis is to hold their colonizer accountable.
Haiti was one of the first place in the Western Hemisphere abolished slavery. And we know what take place when Haiti win their independence by a revolution. Haiti had to pay France for their own independence for over the years. And I think, if I am mistaken, Haiti's still paying that debt up to date.
McKinney says while he does not support illegal squatting, he wants those agitating for demolition to be more humane.
Everybody looking for betterment. And say, though, let's break down the shanty town. I mean, of course, you can't just go on people's land and that's squat on people's land and that's people's private land. But we must find the best way to deal with it, because if you just run them, then you create the next problem.
The High Priest is also calling on CARICOM heads of government to raise their voices to first world countries in combating these issues.
The Caribbean or CARICOM heads of government speak strong enough to the bigger heads, to France and to America, concerning what need to be done from that level. Because the Bahamas is a little too small to really take on this much burden at this time.
In addition to Haiti, High Priest McKinney believes that the Rastafarian community should also be compensated for the years of oppression suffered from the world superpowers.
Relatives of a British family who owned about 1,200 slaves on 6 plantations in Grenada have apologized for their family's actions.
At a reparations forum hosted by the Grenada National Reparation Commission and the University of the West Indies on Monday, New York-based BBC reporter Laura Trevelyan read a letter of apology signed by 7 members of the Trevelyan family for their ancestors' role in slavery on the island.
To the people of Grenada, we, the undersigned, write to apologize for the actions of our ancestors in holding your ancestors in slavery.
A ceremony was held to establish a fund where Laura personally pledged £100,000 to the local reparations committee. The money will come from a pending BBC pension payout.
I came up with that figure because that's what I, at this moment in time, can afford to give. I hope, I'm 54 years old, and when I turn 55 in August, that's the moment when I can give this money, because I will actually come into a pension from the BBC. And so I'm taking a proportion of that pension as a cash payment to give to the people of Grenada.
The letter was handed over to Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, who promised to fight for reparations.
Slavery wasn't ended overnight, and the fight for reparations is going to be a long, hard, and difficult fight. But it is a fight that we owe to our ancestors, because they never accepted slavery as normal. They never accepted that their position in life was to be slaved.
After receiving a letter of apology on behalf of Grenada, he presented it to members of the local reparations committee, who are expected to forward it to the regional reparations committee. In 1834, the family received compensation equivalent to £3 million in today's money as part of the abolition of slavery. Vice-Chancellor and Chairman of the CARICOM Reparations Committee, Professor Hilary Beckles, compared the compensation offered to slaveholders to compensation offered to bank robbers for their crimes. The Grenada Reparations Committee Chairman, Ali Gill, described the occasion as a day of remembrance.
This apology and financial commitment from Laura Trevelyan and the family should serve as a clarion call to other families, institutions, and governments in Europe to acknowledge their wrongs, apologize, and commit to repairing the harms done by the ancestors.
As the ceremony progressed, a group of people who did not support the ceremony and the Trevelyans' financial commitments held a peaceful protest outside of the building. Reporting for GBN News, Beverly Telesford.
In international news, U.S. politicians have been debating a bill that would give the president authority to ban apps, including TikTok, while another U.S. congressional committee held hearings on what it calls the Chinese Communist Party's threat to the United States. Al Jazeera has the details.
China is at the top of the agenda of the U.S. Congress. That was the message delivered during a primetime hearing featuring a highly produced video showing what the U.S. says is China's history of human rights violations.
Innocent citizens were killed.
This was the inaugural sitting of the newly formed House Select Committee on China.
We may call this a strategic competition, but it's not a polite tennis match. This is an existential struggle over what life will look like in the 21st century. And the most fundamental freedoms are at stake.
The panel was created soon after Republicans took control of the House in January. The committee's top Democrat made clear his party was also fully on board.
The goal of the CCP has become clear: to displace U.S. and other competitors, especially in tomorrow's strategic industries. As Chairman Xi himself recently said, quote, "The East is rising while the West is declining."
A series of recent disputes between the U.S. and China have grown in intensity, straining relations between the world's two biggest economies. Now U.S. lawmakers are taking aim at TikTok, the Chinese-owned social media platform used by 100 million Americans. The House Foreign Affairs Committee is considering a measure that would grant the White House powers to ban TikTok from the U.S.
TikTok is a modern-day Trojan horse of the CCP, used to surveil and exploit Americans' personal information.
On Monday, the White House ordered TikTok be removed from all U.S. federal government devices, despite TikTok's assurances that all U.S. users' data is stored within the United States. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said Tuesday the U.S. is targeting TikTok due to its popularity in the American marketplace. And in another separate but parallel action, the House Financial Services Committee on Tuesday advanced no fewer than 7 bills, either opposing China or supporting Taiwan. This recent spate of anti-China actions from Washington comes at a time of escalating tensions that now are even less likely to ease. Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Washington.
In sporting news, South Africa dominated the first 2 sessions of play as day 1 of the first test bowled off in Centurion. But the West Indies managed to claw themselves back in at the close of play. TTT Sports has the match details.
Winning the toss and electing to bat, Dean Elgar and Aidan Markram piled on 141 for the first wicket, with Elgar scoring 71. Markram continued his buttress batting, registering 18 boundaries on his way to 115. When he was dismissed with the score on 236, the Windies took their turn at the wheel. Alzari Joseph winched in 3 wickets with Kemar Roach, Kyle Mayers, Shannon Gabriel and Jason Holder supporting with 1 wicket each. The Caribbean men were without the services of left-arm spinner Godakesh Moti, who was ruled out due to injury. South Africa 314 for 8 after 82 overs at stumps on day 1. At the close of play, Alzari Joseph said it was pitch conditions that changed the Windies' fortunes to favour faster bowling during the last session.
I think it was just a little difference in the wicket. It quickened up, so he gave the batsman a little less time to adjust, because earlier it was pretty tacky, a bit slow. So it was, when you bowl at good length, it was easier for the batsman to adjust and, either leave it or play it.
He noted the importance of taking those late wickets before the close of play.
Yeah, I think it was pretty crucial we got those wickets in the back end, because you didn't really want the game to get too far ahead of you, to have to chase it too much in the back end of, tomorrow or day 3. You never know how the wicket's going to react.
Cricket West Indies has announced a new licensing partnership with Next Wave Multimedia, Nazara Technologies' independent subsidiary, which will feature 27 of the West Indies men's team in the latest version of the mobile game Cricket World Championship 3, the world's #1 cricket game on mobile. The collaboration is the first time that West Indies players have ever featured in a mobile game, in the West Indies being the first official cricket team to be featured in the game. And that's the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Remember, you can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. And remember that we are the People's Station.